Hey, I'm Taylor Dorsett, and this is the Professional Technical Interviewee. Technical interviews are hard, and every company does them differently. On this show, I interview engineering leaders to see what they look for in technical candidates, and then they perform a real technical interview with me. My guest today is Veronica Buitron. She's the CEO and founder of TangoCode, based out of the Chicagoland area. We talk about what she's looking for when hiring and trying to find a culture fit for TangoCode, and how she got her first job. I hope you enjoy. Great. Well, welcome back. So we're going to do something just a little bit different. Rather than doing the technical, we're going to do more of a behavioral interview because, Veronica, that's what you typically do at TangoCode. And hopefully I won't be floundering trying to answer React questions, right? So the ball's in your court, and let's get started.
Awesome. Let's do this. Okay, so as I have been saying all along in the podcast, normally in an interview process, the focus is to try to learn somebody about the individual. So I will be like, hey, Taylor, thank you for taking your time and wanting to work with us at TangoCode. This interview, it's really going to be about learning about each other. And I want to ensure that if you decide to actually work in TangoCode, that this is a good fit for you, that this actually is something that will help you become your, best version of yourself. So what I want to do in this interview is get to, and it's up to you that you're doing it in a podcast, but I do want to learn more about yourself. Okay. Yeah. And I want to learn about, what you like, what you don't, right? So through that, we will go through, different type of questions. And so to start with, what I would like to do would be like, and I don't start softly, I will go straight to the heart.
Great.
So if you can share with me, what are you passionate about?
Good question. And I appreciate getting straight to the heart of it. I'm not a small talk person, right? I like big talk, so it's great. I'm passionate about helping folks learn and get better at whatever they want to do. Specifically, right now, that's software development stuff, right? Whatever within that world it may be. I worked as a tech recruiter for a number of years, which was interesting. I got to meet a lot of tech folks and help them in some ways, but it was a little bit not quite what I wanted because I was mostly just helping people who already had jobs get other jobs, right? Which is good sometimes, but not quite that scratch the edge. And then I worked at a coding boot camp where I helped people get their first tech job, and that was like really rewarding, and kind of seeing that process and seeing people go through that was really interesting. And then since shifting into software development myself, I think it's been interesting to see like, oh, here's all the stuff I watched people struggle with before, and I didn't really know what that felt like, right? I was just like, well, just code more, right? It's easy, right? So it's feeling that myself has been interesting, kind of eye-opening. And then that was a big reason around starting the podcast, was being able to, can we reach a broader audience who are also struggling with these questions, right? Of like, holy shit, I've got an interview coming up on Tuesday and it's my first one, or it's like my first one in a long time, right? Like, what do I do? And there's so much going through someone's head, right? So just trying to give more insight into that process is something that I like a lot. And I think makes tech hopefully more inclusive because it just provides more insights, right, and visibility, but also maybe a little less scary for people, myself included. Right?
That's awesome. That's awesome. So within that, how would you say, like, what's your preferred method of learning, or what do you do when you're confronted with something that you had no clue?
Yeah.
Literally, React.js level, whatever. It's like, no idea. So, and you're being asked to do that. What do you do?
Yeah, great question. So when I made my first engineering job, that was like I asked before I started, like I knew I was not really prepared for that job, right, to actually contribute day one. And I asked the CTO, I said, what do I need to like learn before I start, right? And he gave me a huge list of things, and I said, all right, well, I'll try to do as much of that as I can. But the main gap I identified from kind of what I learned in boot camp versus what I was going to need to do in my job was just back in SQL database work, right? It's something that I had very, very basic level knowledge of, right? I could look something up and that's about it. So I got basically tried to find it. Like I asked a buddy and then tried to find a couple courses on Udemy where I could at least get the basics, right? Can I understand the syntax? Can I know how to do some basic functions? And then obviously it's going to be a little bit different once I see it in an actual environment, but just getting up and running, right? So that was useful for me. And now I'm trying to do the same thing with React, as I know, thankfully, my company now, we have we're not using React yet, but we know we're going to in the future. So I'm I'm doing a course where I'm working through like at least let me know the kind of the syntax, but also just like recognize patterns once we start to do this. Oh, this is what we should be doing. This makes a little bit of sense. Like I did this to some extent, right? So my main strategy is working through at least 1 or 2 classes of this thing that I'm doing every day, to make sure that it's like fresh in my mind, and hopefully building, I don't know, pathways in my mind so I can recognize it later on, right?
Awesome. So you're basically trying to like recognize like what that has in common with other things. One of the things that I found that it works like quite a bit would be like, what does that have in common related with something that you know, and then go from there to make it be less scary type of
Totally.
thing.
Yeah, I had to do some PHP work in my last job, and I was mostly Ruby focused at the time. And like it took me like, honestly, it took me a month, 2 months to figure out like, oh, this is much easier if I look at, this is how I do it in Ruby, this is how I do it in PHP. Now those are connected in my mind versus like, I have to do this weird thing in PHP that I don't understand and I know how to do in Ruby. And like once I could kind of put the one-to-one together, it did make it a lot easier.
Yeah, awesome. So talking about getting to know you, right? Have actually 2 questions that are related to that. Mm-hmm. Number one would be, is there something that you strongly believe on that other people, that you find a lot of times other people do not? And then you have to, and what do you do about it?
Good question. I think I make assumptions sometimes. I think I mentioned this earlier, where I was in this director of outcomes role for a boot camp, and I thought like, well, just code more, just send more applications, right? Like that's all you have to do to get the job you want, right? I think I strongly believe in like, I'm very internally motivated, and I believe that like, oh, other people can achieve these same types of things if they just follow these steps, right? And what it's been kind of eye-opening, especially when I managed people in the past, I recognize, oh, that is not true for everyone, right? Everyone is motivated in different ways. So when I say just make yourself do this thing every day, right? And you'll get a little bit better, a little bit closer every day. To me, that just seems like the logical step. To them, that does not seem like a thing that is possible, right? Because they may be motivated in different ways. So I don't know if I'm trying to convince people of that anymore, but I think it's a thing that I've learned about myself is sometimes I make these assumptions because my brain works this way that everyone else's does too, right? And I think hopefully I try to convince people less of that I just try, if they're asking me like, how do you do that? I like, oh, well, this is the way this works for me, right? Rather than this is the universal way it does work, right?
Nice. Awesome. And to close up this culture interview, tell me a time that you have done something crazy. Or that you consider crazy, right?
Yeah, probably the dumbest thing I've ever done in my life, but felt very necessary at the time. I was living in Chicago. I was a theater major in college, so I moved to Chicago for a summer, and stayed with my aunt out in the suburbs. And I would take the train in, and I was doing this intensive like basically improv boot camp during the day, and I would get there I'd get there like 9 a.m, which means I had to be in the and I was young, so getting there at 9 a.m mean I had to be on the train at like 7, which is a lot. I had to wake up at 6:30. And I would do the improv thing all day, and then I would watch shows at night, and then I would take the last train coming out of Chicago. I think it was like the 12:48 or something, right? Going back to Glen Ellen. And one night I fell asleep on the train, and rode all the way to the second to last stop and way past Glen Ellen. And as soon as I stepped off the train, it's like 1:30, almost 2 o'clock in the morning. I was going to call my aunt or my uncle, and my phone died. And right as I turned around, I watched not the conductor, but whoever the train guy is, shut the door, right? And the train kept going without me. And I went, I guess I just gotta walk back that way, right? And as I was walking, I noticed just a slow moving train going that same direction. And I kept walking, and the train kept moving, and eventually I went, oh, I could jump on that train and it'll take me there. And I thought I was 5-10 miles away. So I climbed up on this train, and it was a coal train, and I just sat on the top of it. It was kind of open air train. And what I did not realize as we were moving along and along, this train's getting progressively faster and faster. It was starting very slow, and it just got faster and faster along the way. Like I jogged to jump on it. When I see the Glen Ellen stop, I recognize, oh, we got to be going 15-20 miles an hour. But if I don't get off now, like I'm going to end up in a train yard in Detroit tomorrow morning. Like I don't know where I'm going, right? So I climbed down the side of the train, and in movies they make it seem like you can just jump and roll. That is not in reality a thing that is a good idea. So I positioned myself kind of leaning outwards and just jumped and tried to kind of land on my butt and my feet at the same time. So I would just kind of maybe slide down the hill. It did not work. I hit the ground. I got 2 scars on my head still from where I basically did a full flip, landed on my head twice, and then hit the ground, and the train's rolling past me. And probably the dumbest thing I've ever done in my life, because about 2 inches from me was a railroad spike I could have stabbed into, right? And the funny part of this story is I got up and I was walking. I jumped right before the railroad crossing, and there was a car sitting there waiting for the train to pass, and it was this older couple. I don't know what they were doing out at like 2:30 in the morning, because it was pretty late by that point. But I realized they had just watched me jump off of this train, 10 feet from them, and then get up, probably concussed, like stumbling towards them, head bleeding, and to just walk past their car to the parking lot. So not a thing I would do again, but felt very necessary at the time to get back home. I don't know if that's something you should mention in a job interview, but
actually, those are the type of things that we're looking for, like to hear. So yeah, actually, absolutely.
I would not recommend to folks in the future get a cab.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thank you. I have about 20 more questions kind of like this, but this was really good. I gave you the ones that I feel are they're, most important ones to do. And you did great in the sense, I hope you do that in an interview. You show yourself. Mm-hmm. And that's really, as interviewers, that's what we're looking for, mm-hmm. For me, the worst answer could be when I feel like they're trying to impress me, or what is your, everybody has positives and negatives. What do you think are your weak points? I work too much.
Yeah. Yeah.
Say that to your wife as a problem, not to me when I ask you for a weak point.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think these are the types of questions that maybe it's not always exactly the same question, but you get enough. I haven't been asked what's the craziest thing I've done in a while, right? But variations on similar types of questions in behaviorals a lot. And it's something that you can, maybe not, you don't have a whole story memorized, right? But at least you have an idea of like, oh, when someone asks me, what is my weakness? I'm not going to say I care too much, or I try too hard, right? Like probably have something, right? I can probably think of what is something I'm trying to get better at, and then map that into a story that, while it is a weakness of mine, at least I can spin it into like, this is somewhat positive, right? I'm trying
It's
to
a positive
get better.
light because you're trying to do something better, but it shows that you an awareness of yourself.
Yeah.
And what are you looking for to fix it or to work through it? That's
Yeah.
really what you're looking at with that question. It really doesn't matter what you're saying. It's just, you're looking for an awareness, and like, what are you working towards?
Yeah. I think everyone has probably oh no, like this is the thing. And then they try to figure out like, how do I spin it? I think just say the thing, right? And then maybe 100%. In that first interview, you don't know exactly the right way to frame it. But I think this is the behavioral side is just like the technical side is something you can practice, right? And almost a little bit easier because you can do it in front of the mirror, or you can do it with a significant other or a friend or something, and they can tell you like, ooh, maybe don't say that thing, but this part was really good, right? Where you could have shared something about yourself.
Yeah. No, I could tell you that your crazy story, I think it's always a great story. And it tells things about yourself, the same way that when you're telling me about, so when you're telling me that you're internally motivated, and that, just so you know, I took that side outside because I thought maybe he was trying to impress, if he was the real thing. However, what I took from you was the part of saying you are realizing that the way that you think things are not necessarily you used to think that will apply to everybody, but now you're aware that it doesn't, and you're doing something about it. That means it's somebody that is learning about, things. So that's basically what you're looking for.
Yeah, that's probably the biggest realization of my career is learning that not everyone's brain works the same way mine does, right? made things make a lot more sense after I figured that out. Great. Well, any other questions, anything to plug? Obviously TangoCode, it sounds like company's doing well and probably taking on new clients and probably always looking to grow in Chicago and around the country and the world here.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So we actually, if you want to check it out, we do have open positions. We're looking, we actually have for what we call a solution owner, which is like agile technical project manager. We're looking for a QA. So check out the website and you can see like the different open roles. And sure, if this entice you to be part of our team, then that's great.
Great. And you said the tech stack was React, Node on the back end primarily. You use like AWS services and the non-relational databases?
Yes, a mix of relational and non-relational databases. From a product perspective, that's exactly it. From custom development, because we do projects with clients, we have that's our strength. From a UI perspective, it is React.js for sure. But then from a backend perspective, there's also Java and C# depending on the client, and cloud, mainly AWS, but we also work with Azure.
Great. Well, thanks so much. It's been a blast. I appreciate you being on the show.
Oh, no, thank you for having me. It was just fun. So this is great, and hopefully useful for people listening, which is like the main point, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for watching the technical interview portion of the Professional Technical Interviewee. If you want to tackle this interview question, you can find it at github.com/professional technical interviewee. New episodes are released on the first 4 Thursdays of each month. Find us on YouTube at youtube.com/Dorsett or on Apple Podcast or Spotify. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out on new episodes. And remember, keep practicing.